Hello, everybody. Whoever's here, I'm glad you're here. And whoever is not here live right now with me and Allison, I am excited that you're going to be able to see this on the recorded, um, version. Allison, I want to thank you, first of all, in Cognitive Care Solutions for inviting me, to speak today. This is one of my favorite subjects, of course. This is what I've been doing for decades of my life. Is looking at nutrition and a number of other lifestyle factors that we can use to optimize our health and well-being overall. And of course, today we're going to be focusing mainly on what's going on with brain health and how to optimize our brain function. I'll be speaking, as Allison said, for close to 40 minutes, at least 35. I want to leave at least 15 minutes for questions at the end. And if you have any other questions beyond that 15 minutes that we'll have, go ahead and contact Allison and she'll be sure to contact me and I can go ahead and answer some of your questions at that time. But we intend to finish our time together at 1 o'clock. Never enough time to talk about the subject, but let's get started, okay? So first of all, of course, our subject today is brain health and that nutrition matters. And Allison asked that I speak about what's going on with nutrition overall and how it affects our brain health. This is a very broad subject and it's easy to get very technical and scientific, but I'm going to try to pull back from getting too technical or too scientific so that we can cover more ground as far as basic concepts are concerned. Okay. Just want to go ahead and let you know as far as disclosures and expectations, if you'll read through this easily yourself, it speaks for itself. And here we have this gorgeous display of wholesome, nutrition-filled foods. And the important reasons why all of these foods are seen here and more, which we'll talk about later, is that these foods have magical capabilities, so to speak, where they are able to activate a huge number of mechanisms that end up inspiring and allowing for greater cognitive function. So we're going to focus on the beauty of these and let's get started and keep going. Let me go to the right. Okay, so here we are. As far as a bit about your brain and your diet and you, the thing to recognize with your brain is that it is adaptable and it's still evolving. Your brain, our brains continue to evolve and transition always, every single day of our lives. What's going on is that you're eating your brain, our brain function is the way it is based on a number of factors that have gone on throughout our whole life and how we've eaten throughout our whole life. But it's absolutely true that your brain, our brains respond better with good nutrition, better nutrition. Okay, it stimulates the brain health and cognitive function that we're looking for. And your diet is reflective of everything that is important to you with food choices. It's about your preferences, your needs, your habits. And recognizing that your diet is the way it is, sometimes it takes people a little while once they know how to improve their nutrition to integrate changes. So just realize that if you make changes methodically and gradually with the easiest changes first, it usually assures an easier time integrating new changes that will last for the long term. What we want to do is to recognize that during our time today, if you can jot down the most important salient points that mean a lot to you, and you can come back to it later and then do a deeper dive on what matters to you, but we'll be covering a lot of subjects today. So just go ahead and start jotting down what matters to you. And I'm just going to come back to what our main goals are. As we spoke about earlier, our main goals have a lot to do with not just minimizing risk, which is a lot of what goes on with my patients who are a little bit younger or have family members or friends who have cognitive decline, but a lot of people want to integrate nutrition status that's going to minimize their risk on an ongoing basis. And our brain starts to change around in our mid age, 45 to 65 years of age, 40 to 65 years of age, about that. Most of our patients that we see for cognitive decline, they're already experiencing some issues with memory, focus, processing, recall, things like that. And so what their goal is to either slow the onset that they're noticing, slow the progression of the cognitive decline. And for a lot of our patients who are more advanced, we are focusing on reversing their cognitive decline. So these are the four main goals that of the patients that we see. And I'm not sure where each of you are in these goals 1 through 4. I know you're anywhere in that spectrum, but wherever you are in that spectrum, the same nutrition principles apply. Sometimes for reversing cognitive decline, we get more aggressive with our nutrition profile that we're trying to suggest people integrate. And they're usually very motivated to do whatever they can to reverse the cognitive decline. So goal 4 takes us into a deeper realm of more specific dietary changes. But today I'm going to be focusing on the mainstream dietary changes. So as we know, healthful nutrition combined with other lifestyle changes optimize goal achievement. I want you to know this is not only about nutrition alone as far as making the big difference in health and well-being. The other lifestyle changes that a lot of people want to integrate are going to help make the overall changes that the brain and the body are really craving. So nutrition is one of several components. It's a crucial one. But the other components, as a lot of you already know, would be physical exercise for your body, brain exercise for stimulating brain function, sleep matters, stress matters, meditation matters, what goes on with your social relations matters. So there's a lot of features that we can integrate to help optimize health and well-being in our lifestyle habits. So we're going to be focusing, of course, more on the nutrition part. I'm going to see if I can go back. Here we go. And I'm just going to focus on the fact that what determines our brain health, firstly, is our genetics. How our parents, what their genetic profile was with their brain health affects our genetic profile and our tendencies for the possibility of cognitive impairment or cognitive strength. And so we need the genetics we can't do anything about, but the thing we can do is we can look at our comorbid conditions that also affect our brain health, and nutrition affects all these comorbid conditions as well. So everything we discussed today that pertains to the brain health will also pertain to improving any comorbid conditions that could influence brain health. So it's all blended together in optimizing our outcomes through our nutrition choices. But some of the other comorbid conditions that affect health and brain health would be diabetes or insulin resistance, heart disease, cardiovascular disease. It could be having to do with GI issues or gastrointestinal issues, with gut function issues. So it could be having to do with hypertension. Comorbid condition even pertains to being overweight or carrying more body fat than we need, because body fat in itself can act as an inflammatory feature. So there are a huge host of comorbid conditions that what we're discussing today with nutrition will also help improve. I already mentioned the lifestyle factors. And what I need you to understand is starting nutrition being a primary lifestyle factor, it starts in the womb with how our moms fed themselves as to how our brain is developed even in utero, and then how we feed ourselves, how we feed our brain throughout all the years is what culminates into where you are now in your life. So all those factors matter in culminating to where you are right now. The thing to recognize is that the brain adapts to improve nutrition. And so everything you're going to be learning today, things you've already started to do through your own research and counseling you may have had, all allows you on a daily basis to do what your brain can to catch up and adapt and improve itself. I am trying to figure out how to lower. Let me go to see how I can lower this screen right here. Okay, so everybody stand by for a minute. I'm just going to see how to take care of what I want to do to move the screens forward.
Why can't I hear?
Now you can hear. Are you there?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me? Okay. All right. So where we're going to be going with this is looking at what is healthful nutrition. And what you're seeing here is a huge variety of wholesome foods. The thing I want to point out to you is that of these foods you're seeing right here, many of them are contributing, or all of them are contributing crucial elements that work synergistically and independently in affecting different mechanisms in our brain and in our body to optimize our cognitive function. So what we're seeing are yummy, beautiful, wholesome, fresh foods. And we all know, oh my gosh, these are best for us. But why are they best for us? And that's where we're going to be going with this now. This is an example of the Mediterranean diet. Okay, but we'll be going over other diet features that get more into specifics that we will want to look at improving our health and well-being and our brain function particularly. So what is healthful nutrition? It boils down to food chemicals. The chemistry in our foods is what makes a difference with our brain health. All foods contain elements that are active chemicals. And chemicals we typically think are things that might not be healthy for us. You know, we think that they're usually toxic or a problem. Bottom line, food is live, and it was created by chemicals, and it contains, all foods contain chemicals, and they are active. And the thing we want to think about is that the active chemicals in all of our foods can have either positive or negative effects on our brain health and our well-being. Cognitive enhancement relies on the beneficial chemicals in our food and the good nutrients, the ones that are best. Cognitive impairment occurs when we are feeding our brain and our body damaging chemicals, or if we have a diet that's lacking in the nutrients that support brain health. So what you need to know is that we want to fill our body, fill our plates, fill our brain with those foods that have the elements that act favorably and motivate and activate positive changes. Our brain health foods contain so many elements. Even within one food itself, it can contain so many elements that work either independently or synergistically in accomplishing optimized brain health. An example of this is a nutrient called choline and vitamin B5 and vitamin D. These are 3 independent nutrients. They all have their own specific individual benefits for the brain. But when they are together and working together at the cell site, then they can create something called acetylcholine. And that is something that improves our brain function. So I want you to realize it's almost like a symphony. Food and the chemicals in food is almost like a symphony or an orchestra. Each musician in the orchestra has its own instrument. And if there's a violinist playing a violin, you hear the violin sound, and it has its purpose in helping us feel good. But once the cello or the other instruments, the harp or whatever joins in, then you now have a fuller orchestra with a fuller sound and a bigger impact. And that's a little bit about the way the natural chemicals in foods work. And so I want to just help you know that all the foods that I'm going to be suggesting have a variety of benefits, all within each specific food item. And the way that this works is that these food chemicals improve our cognitive state by activating cellular, physiological, biochemical, metabolic, and hormonal changes. All those things are occurring in our body from our brain down to our toes, with our nervous system throughout our body and other elements in our body that are being influenced, whether it's our gut or our heart health or our glucose and our insulin resistance, our diabetes. The foods we eat affect cellular, physiologic, biochemical, metabolic, and hormonal changes that end up influencing our brain directly or indirectly through those other features as well. So let's go on to the benefits of good nutrition. What I want you to understand is all those chemicals, healthy, great chemicals in our foods that we want to incorporate, instead of any foods that have disadvantageous chemicals, those healthy chemicals and nutrients affect all 11 of these items you're seeing here. And I know all of you are familiar or with most of these items, several of these 11 items. I know you're already comfortable and familiar with. There may be a little bit of haziness about, well, what specifically does that mean? Neurons, synapses, myelin sheath, brain growth, hydration, neurotransmitters, blood flow, inflammation, oxidative stress, amyloid degradation, removal of damaged cells, ameliorating cognitive decline. All these things are familiar. These are familiar terms to you. So what we're going to do today is recognize, without getting too much into the technological parts and the scientific reasoning, but all of these 11 are affected by food, and this is a beginning of how foods affect us. As far as our neurons are concerned, we know our neurons are those cells that enable messages to be transmitted. These messages, in essence, are enabling us to have clearer thinking, better processing, recall. They can end up affecting our mood as well. So all the elements that we're concerned about when it comes to cognitive function are influenced by how many neurons we have and how healthy the neurons are that we have. So one of the beauties of nutrition, one of the main goals is number one, which is creating more neurons, new neurons, which can happen on a daily basis. So I want you to understand that there's a certain element called neurotrophins. Neurotrophins are responsible for creating new neurons. And the foods that help, many foods from many food groups, can assist in creating new neurotrophins, which then creates new neurons. So at the bottom of each of these entries here, and I have 11 entries relating to the slide I just showed you, you're going to see the types of foods that are enabling us to accomplish this task. And according to the Mediterranean diet, you're going to see a lot of these things incorporated, these foods incorporated into Mediterranean diet, and other diets also I'll talk about also in a little while. Other direct benefits of nutrition: creating new synapses. What are synapses? They're the little mechanism that is occurring almost like a little branch between those neurons that enables neurotransmitters to work effectively, messages to work effectively, messages to fire between the neurons so that the messages get sent quickly, and then our brain can benefit by actually firing thoughts, processing, decision making. It even affects motor regulation and balance. So these foods down here, again, same ones, are responsible for creating more neurotrophins to build and create new synapses. What about item 3, the myelin sheath? Myelin sheath, or myelinization, is something that we want to have happen. The myelin sheath is the outer coating of our neurons. And the healthier our myelin sheath is, again, that will enable the neurotransmitters and the electrical impulses basically between the neurons to act faster and more efficiently. So we know that damaged or not enough neurons, synapses, myelin sheath, slow thinking, processing, recall, and a whole host of other issues having to do with cognitive function. And so we want to optimize these first three. In addition to the foods that we're seeing here, obvious foods, healthy fats, eggs, blueberries, you're also maybe seeing, as we go down farther, certain vitamins or minerals or micro elements, phytochemicals that assist in accomplishing these tasks. So it's more than just what you're seeing here on this bottom line with each of these entries. This is just kind of the high points of foods and vitamins and minerals and trace minerals that might make a difference. Supporting brain growth comes down to volume, the volume and the structure. Our brain starts to shrink now. It's a natural phenomenon as we age. And again, it starts between 40 and 65 years of age. So part of what we want to do is we want to keep our brain structure from minimizing and accentuating our brain structure and keeping it as sound as we can. The Mediterranean diet has been found through many research studies over the years to slow the onset of cognitive impairment and to keep the brain volume and tissue more intact. I'm going to show you here what the Mediterranean diet is, and this is just a snapshot of the emphasis. It's mainly plant foods at the bottom.
Suggesting Mediterranean diet to help my brain.
Yeah, the Mediterranean diet, and I'm hearing somebody speak, does help with a healthy brain. The thing that I want to point out to you is that of all the plant foods down here, and we'll talk about more of this later, but we want to emphasize more of the veggies. And you're seeing avocado and olive oil and healthy nuts and seeds and nut butters. Those are more advantageous as far as brain health is concerned. We like to dial down the fruits and any sugars. And we like to keep the grains, whole grain, and the legumes, which are garbanzos, pintos, lentils. Those are advantageous. But I'll talk to you a little bit later about the balance of what's going on with Mediterranean diet versus another diet I'll explain a little later. This emphasizes fish as a huge, important facet of our brain health. It relies on omega-3 fatty acids. The protein in the fish has direct influences on an increasing brain health. The next rung up, which is about other protein sources, the poultry is fine, light meat of poultry, low fat types of dairy foods are best. Eggs are excellent. And then at the top of the chart, we like to de-emphasize red meat, having it now and then, but not often. And also at the very top, trying to just keep sweets down as much as possible. A little red wine is fine. We could talk more about that later if we have time in our question section. But the thing I really want to point out to you now is about water. This is an integrated component of the Mediterranean diet. It is a crucial facet having to do with brain health. It is not a food, but it could be considered a non-caloric nutrient as far as we're concerned in medicine. And the reason why is the following. Fluid hydrates the brain cells and the nerve tissue, and it hydrates every cell in our body from our neck down, not just from our neck up. Countless research studies have shown over the year that hydration assists in improving short-term memory, alertness, focus, executive function, motor skills. It also helps with clearing toxins or damaged cells, waste products, removes it from the cell, clearing the cell, giving the cells a fresh start to work with just the vital components that it wants and needs in order to function optimally. Damaged elements in the cells pose a problem. They impair the brain and every brain cell from working as favorably as it wants to and needs to, or you may want it to. And again, research says it proven time and time again, dehydration, meaning for most people, at least less than 4 cups a day. For some people, it's less than 6 cups a day. And you may be dehydrated without even knowing it because you may not recognize a thirst signal, but you may be dehydrated. Most people, we know, can be dehydrated for hours before their brain starts registering that they're actually thirsty. Dehydration impairs cognitive function directly. It increases dementia risk, and it can accelerate cognitive decline. And it also can cause more issues with the proteins in our cells, the brain cells. They become misfolded, or and basically they aren't a normal shaped cell or functioning cell. It ends up being a damaged cell, and that can end up building up in the brain also. So the fluid, water in the cells helps everything work optimally the way it's supposed to. I'm going to suggest 8 cups of fluid a day is our norm. And if people are already using 8 cups of fluid a day, unless there's some dietary or medical reason why you should not be using 8 cups of fluid a day, please work up to it gradually. If you're already using 8 cups a day, there may be a chance, especially if you exercise or you're out in the sun, that you would need more than 8 cups a day. That makes a huge difference. Item 6, creating neurotransmitters. Again, nutrition and how that can influence our brain health is neurotransmitters, and they're actually the elements that assist in the communication between the neurons, again, allowing for all of the features that we want to integrate with focus and concentration and acuity and recall. Affects the mood. So the neurotransmitters, acetylcholine being one of them, and I mentioned it earlier, controls focus and thinking and memory. It also affects sleep, which affects brain function and feelings, and it affects movements, which for some people, if they don't have good balance and they fall and they hurt themselves or they hit their head, that can also affect brain health. So the neurotransmitters have a tremendous, that is basically the essence of what our brains rely on to function optimally. So as you're seeing here, again, some of many, that's why you're seeing a ... elements in nutrition and foods that can assist us. And some of these items here, like the choline, the vitamin B5 and D, with the vitamins, a lot of them are found in our foods. Some people need supplements on the side, but we're not going to go there today and talk about that. So as long as you're eating a very wholesome diet, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a lot of these vitamins already in your foods. Item 7, we want nutrition and how we eat healthfully can create new blood vessels and capillaries. And this can happen on a daily basis, whether it's in your brain or in your body and your whole neurovascular system. And what's going on is that the more vessels and capillaries you have, that allows for greater blood flow. Blood flow is crucial to enabling our brain to clear, again, damaged cells and to enable our brain to function more optimally. And I'm just simplifying a lot of these points here so we can keep moving forward with a lot of these concepts. But the research has shown that cerebrovascular dysfunction can exacerbate dementia. And so, as you can see, the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant-based foods that are in the Mediterranean diet and another diet I'll be showing you, as well as certain vitamins, assist in the creation of new blood vessels and capillaries. What is the 8th of the 11 items that nutrition can help in assisting with? Inflammation and oxidative stress, which I know all of you have heard a tremendous amount about. And inflammation can actually hamper many comorbid features that also influence brain health. So inflammation can affect everything having to do with heart health, diabetes, blood pressure, excess body weight. It can affect a huge number of gut function issues. So inflammation can affect a lot of elements from the neck down, but it also has direct impacts on what goes on with our brain. And oxidative stress magnifies the influences, the deleterious influences of inflammation. So what we're wanting to do is, in order to not activate and accelerate cognitive decline and dementia, but in order to dial back and hamper the advancement of that decline, we want to go ahead and again use as many anti-inflammatory, antioxidant foods as possible. And here's an example of some of them. Besides the foods, phytochemicals are natural elements or chemicals found in plant foods that are very powerful and have very powerful anti-inflammatory effects and antioxidant effects. So one of the reasons why dialing back to that Mediterranean diet I showed you earlier, I'm emphasizing lots of plant foods, but specifically lots of vegetables, is because they are providing most of the polyphenols, even extra virgin olive oil. Olives are a fruit. Olive oil is derived from olives. So even though it's not a green vegetable, it is still coming from the plant realm. So polyphenols, flavonoids, carotenoids, lycopene, this is just 4 of a huge number of phytochemicals that can affect inflammation. Got to bring that inflammation down. That's crucial. Number 9, amyloid degradation. I know you've already heard and read about amyloids, and they build up in the brain over years. And I want you to understand, those amyloids they can either continue to build and grow and proliferate, or you can slow them down or try to reverse or degrade or expel basically the amyloid. And what we have found is high glucose and high insulin levels in the blood and insulin resistance, they can hamper the body's natural ability to degrade amyloid. And so one of the reasons, I'm sure you've been reading this and you hear it a lot, oh, I shouldn't have much carb, or I shouldn't have much sugar. Why? There's a lot of reasons why. But one of the main reasons pertaining to the brain health with amyloid degradation is if your insulin is high, the enzyme that is needed to break down that insulin, that high insulin level, and bring it down, that one component that does that is also required to break down the amyloid. So if we've got a lot of high insulin level, because we have a lot of insulin resistance and we're eating a lot of sugars or carbs, and we have a lot of glucose, that element that is there to break down the insulin may not be as available to also help break down the amyloid. So that's one of the reasons why we like to suggest that people have a modest amount of fruit, okay, and fruit items, and to try to keep the sugars down to a modicum. Just be really picky and choosy about which of those sweets you prefer, because that amyloid is waiting to be broken down. And if there's a lot of sugars in our diet, that will keep the amyloid from being broken down. Intermittent fasting, number 10 out of the 11. Our nutrition directly affects how we deal with any damaged cells, and we have damaged cells going on all the time. I even do, and I eat very well, and I have good lifestyle habits. But part of our phenomenon of being alive is the body is constantly working on clearing stuff out that we don't need, or the body is already used up and is trying to clear, cleaning up our cells, so to speak. So I want you to understand that the damaged cells and the proteins that can harm cognitive function can be influenced not only by the types of foods we're eating, as we've been talking about, but also how long we go without eating. And so intermittent fasting, which I'm sure you've all heard about or are already doing, that intermittent fast enables, which goes on from about at least 12 hours if we can, from the time you have dinner until the time the next day you have breakfast. So that long-term span of time without eating or feeding your cells gives your cells a chance to take a reprieve, a break, and start working on clearing themselves. This is all the cells in your brain and the rest of your body. So the intermittent fasting is integral in accomplishing that task. And so that is the beauty of intermittent fasting. One of the other beauties, and I'll mention it now, even though it's not on our slides, is to try to not have anything like 3 hours before you go to sleep, because that again starts to enable the body to start its clearing process on a metabolic level. This is what goes on inside all the cells. Omega-3 fatty acids, item 11. This is just one of the primary of a huge number of nutritional chemicals, so to speak, elements that assist in reducing cognitive decline. So one of the reasons why we like people using fatty fish or some other or some plant foods that have a lot of omega-3s is because the research has shown for decades now that omega-3s do help with decreasing cognitive decline. And of the omega-3s, the DHA is most instrumental in accomplishing this task. There are a lot of different omega-3s that are found in fish and other foods. And if you looked at the omega-3 bucket of all the different omega-3s that are in there, the DHA is the one that is most helpful for cognitive function. So just wanted to mention that to you. I showed you before about the Mediterranean diet, how it had a huge amount of plant foods on the bottom, including fruits and grains and legumes, which are starchy. And I want to suggest with the MIND diet, this is not Mediterranean, but this is the MIND diet, MIND. And it's at least 12 years ago that we were first coming into, in the neurology world, coming into what are we going to do for our patients to try to help encourage greater cognitive function and to try to stop the dementia, try to keep things in a MCI, mild cognitive impairment stage, and keep the brain from advancing towards advanced cognitive decline or even Alzheimer's disease. This diet is also something that pertains to other neurological conditions, Parkinson's, people who've had strokes, so MS. So what we found is that the MIND diet is geared more towards neurological issues and more specific in its suggestions compared to the Mediterranean diet, which is more broad spectrum. As you're seeing here, it's still high in plant foods, great with avocados, nuts, and seeds. It emphasizes herbs and spices, which also can have advantages. It allows for a little bit of wine and a lot of omega-3s. There's fish. So let's go to the next slide. The MIND diet, what to eat and what to try to limit. So it really does go into more specifics with guidelines of how much to have of each of these items here. This slide does not show you how many specific servings to have of the greens or the veggies or the berries or the nuts or olive oil. It doesn't tell you specific quantities to eat. But if you were to look it up, you would see that it does tell you that. And I don't want to go into the specifics now because it would slow us down a little bit. But I wanted to introduce you to the clarity that it's good for you to have about the importance of the MIND diet. And the doctors that I work with at the Pacific Neuroscience Institute, they've been promoting this diet for their patients, regardless of their neurological condition, for many years now. So I just wanted to point this out to you so you could look it up yourselves when you have a chance. I just wanted to show this to you because a lot of people think they should be on just a plant-based diet. So my patients say, should I just use plants only? And I say a plant-based diet has its huge advantages, but I really do feel like having some animal protein, like from the fish, for example, is advantageous. So sometimes a plant diet alone is missing certain vitamins and minerals that we would get from fish or poultry or eggs, okay, or yogurt. So I just wanted to mention that. And in summary, because our time for questions is rolling around in 1 more minute. As far as a summary of our time together today, nutrition impacts brain health in countless and proven ways. Your brain is adaptable and it can improve how it functions every single day if it's being fed the way it needs and wants to be fed. Your diet and other lifestyle habits can activate positive impacts on your brain function. The MIND and Mediterranean diets have both been proven to slow and improve cognitive function. And I wanted to point out to you the MIND diet, so you can look that up. And if you're talking to any of your neurologists, you can let them know that you're reviewing the Mediterranean diet and the MIND diet, meaning that you're looking towards taking even better care of yourself if you're not already doing that. Attempt to make any dietary changes gradually, methodically, 1 step at a time, realistic changes first. Don't expect too much of yourself. Try to be patient with yourself. Making changes takes time. So just realize you got to where you are now over a number of years or decades, and you may not be able to rework your diet, of course, overnight. Nobody expects you to. So try not to expect yourself to. And little changes add up to big changes over time. Reach out for support or direction by contacting Allison or your physician or me. And last thing is thank you to Cognitive Care Solutions for having me. I hope you've all learned a lot. Take good care of your brain. It needs you. Eat and drink wisely, using your mind, using your judgment, and your brain knows what you're eating. So be aware of that. To be continued.